And contributors on Conklin and Company are not necessarily those of 13 ABC. Now, Conklin and Company continues with Take 3, commentary and analysis from our panel of political contributors.
And welcome back, everyone. A different kind of Take 3 today as we go to Washington to check in with the 13 ABC Washington Bureau Chief, Jacqueline Policastro. Jacqueline, thanks very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. And welcome to our team. Welcome to Conklin and Company.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, Lee.
Let's talk about what your role is with 13 ABC and from a political perspective. The Bureau Chief in Washington, we are so excited to have you on board to be front and center, be at the center of it all. So much going on this past week. But tell us about your role as you start within the last month or so officially on board with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. Well, what we do here on Capitol Hill is actually really unique. I'm your local reporter covering the White House, Congress, election 2012. I like to tell people that it's really good for democracy. There aren't really a lot of local reporters left here in Washington covering your lawmakers, keeping them accountable. And it is a hard job, though. We actually do a lot of our own work. We do a lot of our own shooting and digital editing, and then we appear here on camera to talk to you. But it's been a fun ride so far. It's definitely very, very busy, as you know.
Yeah, we're proud to have you. From a market size, Toledo's perspective, had you and Ted Fioraliso working for us and our sister stations as well. We do appreciate it. All right, let's get to what has happened this past week. The scandals really rocking Washington. The Secret Service scandal down in Columbia, and also the GSA scandals, that lavish conference out in Las Vegas that has everybody on both sides of the aisle really just shaking their heads. What was it like from your perspective to take a look at Capitol Hill after those scandals broke?
You know what, I have to be honest, they weren't the only ones shaking their heads. A lot of reporters that were doing the same exact thing, Lee. One thing that I have to point out that I found fascinating is that I was watching the coverage of the White House traveling reporters that were moving with the president to Ohio when he was making that speech earlier this week, and none of them were actually talking about what the president was saying. They were talking about all of these scandals, and it just goes to show you how it really put the president off key there, off message. No one was listening to what he was saying almost effectively. They were all paying attention to what was happening outside of the White House. It wasn't really very good for the president, and it gave Mitt Romney a chance to really move in and get his message out there as well. Yeah,
Mitt Romney in Ohio this past week on Thursday, out in Arizona on Friday, getting the official handover, if you will, from John McCain out in Scottsdale, Arizona, that Mitt Romney will be the nominee here come the convention. Let's get to the Senate race, if we can, Jacqueline. Josh Mandel officially jumping in with his own campaign money, some $600,000 on an ad that his campaign produced. It's running here in Toledo. It's running across the state of Ohio. And I asked Sherrod Brown about this ad and when he'll start to flood the airwaves with his own. I want you to listen, and then I want to get your comments on it. I asked Sherrod Brown about Josh Mandel.
Okay.
Well, I'm doing my job every day. My job is to fight for. First, my job is to do the job I was elected to, make that contrast, and second, my job is to figure out how once we did the auto rescue, how you continue to help build that supply chain so there's more domestic, more U.S.-made content in the Wrangler in Toledo and Johnson Controls, and what we're doing in the transmission company, GM Transmission, and in Magnum and Defiance and the engine plant, and all of those jobs that come with the auto rescue and come with building up the auto industry in Ohio again, as we're seeing, in clean air and food processing and all in glass and all that Northwest Ohio is known for. Campaign will take care of itself. I've got a lot of work to do. I'll continue to do it, and the campaign will. The other thing to say is that there's already been the kind of out-of-state money in this campaign already. There's been $5 million, more than any state in the country, from outside interests, mostly oil companies and former Bush administration officials, running attack ads aimed at me. I'm a big boy, but it's just too bad that these interest groups think they have to come into the state and tell people in Toledo and in Bowling Green and Wauseon and Bryan how to vote.
Okay, a long soundbite. We're used to that. We're used to that from our lawmakers. Yeah. But initially it's, hey, I've got a job to do, and then he goes off into the spending, the special interest money that has been put forth for Josh Mandel's campaign. And then it was more into attack mode. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, Lee, this is going to be a fascinating race. Everyone is going to be watching this race. Of course, the senator is going to say he's focusing on his job. Let's be honest here, his job is difficult. Being one of the 100 most powerful people in the world is a difficult job. But he said, I noticed there, that the campaign will take care of itself, and it's not going to. Again, people are going to be watching this very closely. There's a lot of talk about the fact that how Ohio goes will be how this race is won. Basically, if Mitt Romney is able to win Ohio, maybe Mandel will take that seat. If Barack Obama is able to pull out of Ohio, then maybe, just maybe, Brown will keep his seat. Right now, he's still ahead in the polls. But I have to say this about Mandel. He's spending a lot of money, and Brown's going to spend a lot of money too. Just wait for it. Even though he's saying he's not going to do it just yet, he probably will. But you've got Mandel. He's young. He's 34 years old. He's served 2 tours overseas, and he's got the backing of not just John McCain, but someone that I was looking at, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. I'm a Jersey girl. I think that's a big endorsement right there. He's rumored also to be a VP nominee right there. So really, we need to watch this race closely. But Brown is sort of safe in his seat.
Well, I think the gloves are off now officially, and we'll begin to see Sherrod Brown really go into attack mode as he did at the end of that soundbite. I mentioned John McCain earlier, the endorsement for Josh Mandel, but also we're hearing about Rob Portman. The momentum is gaining a bit. We heard Marco Rubio basically endorse Portman for the VP post earlier this week, even though Rubio's at the top of that list too. But I want you to listen to John King from CNN and Rob Portman in an exchange that took place on Thursday night.
I don't think you'd say no if the phone call came.
Look, I think there's a lot of good choices this time around. Frankly, people vote for the person at the top of the ticket.
Is there a book on what people who are being considered for vice president are supposed to say? I think a lot of good choices.
I wish there were.
You wish there were.
Your thoughts? Rob Portman is pretty coy. Pretty coy. Plays it close to the vest.
Yeah.
Doesn't make himself all that available.
My thoughts here are that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Lee, my thoughts here are that Portman is being really modest. Let's be honest. For Marco Rubio to come out and say, you know what, Mitt Romney, I think you should choose Portman as your VP nominee. That's a big deal because he was one of the top people on the list there. Portman has the type of experience that Mitt Romney doesn't. Portman has been in the White House before. He's in the Senate. He served in the House. And Mitt Romney has spent most of his time in the private sector. They make a very good match. Rob Portman is the type of candidate that could step in and become the president if needed. And that is one of the most essential things in this pick. I think if I had to bet on it, I'd definitely say Rob Portman as Mitt Romney's VP pick.
Really? That's what was the next question.
Absolutely.
What is the buzz in Washington about who will join Mitt Romney? Rob Portman is sitting at the top of that list?
Yeah, absolutely. Among insiders, anyway. Of course, there's a lot of names that are tossed around. I mentioned Chris Christie a few minutes ago. He's, of course, one of them. You know, a lot of people look at women wondering if that would be a good pick. But the difference between Portman and choosing one of those candidates is that Portman is a solid candidate, whereas some of those others, they might be chosen because of a minority base they might bring or woman votes that they might bring. But if you look historically in the past, who's actually chosen really isn't based on, you know, bringing in that little niche. It's based on who can do the job the best. And I think that Romney and Portman have a lot of mutual respect, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if Portman was that pick.
Wow.
Exciting for Ohio, for sure.
It's going to be fascinating as we march toward Tampa and the Republican National Convention later this summer. You got a big job to do in Washington with so much going on. Jacqueline Policastro, our Washington bureau chief, along with Ted Fioraliso. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll talk to you again, a new contributor to Conklin and Company. Thanks, Jacqueline.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Lee.
All right, you take care. And that'll do it for this edition of Conklin and Company. Back next Sunday at our regular time right here on 13 ABC. Make it a great day, everyone. We'll see you later.